So we are now officially only a few weeks away from the release of The War Within this month on the 22nd of August for early release, as we take the first few steps into the epic World Soul saga. And whilst retail WoW isn't everyone's cup of tea, there has been a lot of changes to the game over the course of Dragonflight, arguably for the better. Where Dragonflight for me as someone who plays both classic and retail has been a great expansion with lots of quality of life aspects implemented into the game, as well as some pretty great and fun raids in Aberrus and Amirdrassil. And I'm very excited for The War Within's release, which is a great feeling to return to, as the last time I was genuinely excited about a retail expansion was probably Legion, which is starting to feel like a long old time ago now. So let's take a look at some of the reasons why I think The War Within could be worth checking out. If you're a new player, a returning player, or a classic Andy who fancies their hand at this new phase in World of Warcraft. So the first big appeal to many potential new or returning players is that The War Within comes as part of a trilogy in the World Soul saga, starting with The War Within, followed by Midnight, and then finally the last Titan to conclude the story. And The War Within is set to kick off this huge new storyline to top off the past 20 years of Warcraft in many ways. We'll be heading to the never seen before subterranean worlds filled with hidden wonders and lurking perils in Blizzard's words, diving into Azeroth to find a new expansive world, running throughout the land of Khazal-Gar. However, if you're a new player, realistically you should be able to jump into The War Within's story with relative ease, as although it is based upon previous WoW content, the story really will be contained mostly to the next 3 expansions, but expanding on the previous content in some ways. And well, the story for The War Within seems to be picking up at the end of Legion, so if you fell out of love with retail Warcraft since then, now could be a perfect time to jump back in. As the big issue that's regularly highlighted with WoW is that there's too much story and too much to try and catch up on for both new and returning players. Hence why things like Season of Discovery realistically have been the most accessible thing that Blizzard has released for WoW in recent years besides Vanilla Classic, as everyone enters into a level playing field. So with The War Within kicking off the World Soul saga, the playing field storyline wise has been reset in many ways, as although the past story has implications for the World Soul saga, the linear story that will run through the next 3 expansions should be fairly self-contained, and any catch-up you need from previous expansions is explained along the way. So hopefully the story won't feel too intimidating, and it feels like you're jumping on a huge new phase of Warcraft here. With this new story and world design in The War Within, it's also fair to say that the aesthetic that Warcraft has, for the vibe that we regularly speak about, is back big time, as we keep bigger characters like Anduin, Thrall, Jaina and Khadgar, which long-standing players will know, but also more newer introduced characters are coming into the limelight now, like Iridikron from Dragonflight, who's now become a big player, as well as Xal'atath finally taking centre stage as the clear and obvious main big bad for The War Within. We also have the rich life-filled aspects that we love in Azeroth, meeting new races like the Earthen, and starting to understand Azeroth as a character itself, in contrast with Xal'atath's void corruption and the dark Nerubian crypts that we'll be venturing in to explore. It's a classic tale that we're diving into of light versus dark, good versus bad, etc, etc. And we're drawing on several themes and past experiences here for those returning players, which to me really does signal something good on the way, as we dive into a storyline and a world that's feeling like it's bigger than ourselves once again. And I think a key fact to all of this is that we know we will have a consistent style and themes for future expansions too. For example, we're not flopping from Battle for Azeroth to Shadowlands to Dragonflight. We have set ideas of what's to come in this huge story in the trilogy, and they're all popular themes which players have previously enjoyed, or maybe typical themes that RPG players in general will enjoy. Now, an issue that World of Warcraft faced throughout Battle for Azeroth, Shadowlands, and arguably the start of Dragonflight is that gameplay and class mechanics were overly confusing, and raids were simply an overfeast for the senses, and it was quite hard to tell what on earth was actually going on a lot of the time. However, over the course of Dragonflight, retail feels like it has simplified a lot from its previous points. The game is still far more engaging than classic in terms of abilities that you have to use, but the over-exaggeration of using 20 skills in one rotation has gone from a lot of classes now, and in my experience gameplay is actually quite fun, through leveling up various classes to 70, having a blast learning how to play them, as well as running them on Chromie time to see some past nostalgia. And we have had some great raids like mentioned in Aberrus and Amirdrassil in Dragonflight, and I don't see any reason why this won't continue into The War Within, starting with that big Nerubian Palace raid that we're heading straight into. And with this simplification we're also getting the addition of hero talents in The War Within, which we'll see how characters gain access to some crazy abilities, which seem both visually and mechanically pretty impressive, and once again, fun. Unbelievable, I know. So this general sweep of toning down retail somewhat is a good move. Unless you did try to join in in the pre-patch event for the War Within, in which case let's just sweep that under the carpet. That's pretty old retail stuff we're dealing with there. But this is something that I'd personally drill in about coming back to the War Within as a potential returning player or classic WoW player. As myself, for someone who plays both classic and retail World of Warcraft has changed a lot for the better, and arguably at this point is actually far more fun and promising than classic WoW, and it does seem to have finally gotten over that slump that Shadowlands put the game in. For new players, I think that gameplay wise it's getting towards that perfect blend of being fairly fast paced while not overwhelming. I would still argue there's grounds to be made here, though it's not perfect by any means, and that the new player experience could be streamlined better, but we'll have to see how it works out now with Dragonflight being the new starting expansion. But if you're someone who is tempted to jump into the War Within, starting now in the pre-patch would be more than enough preparation going through Dragonflight, learning classes and feeling like you'll slot right into starting the new expansion. And the War Within looks to add further to this with hero talents that we'll be gaining as we level throughout the Earth's core, as we head into 8 new dungeons, 1 brand new spanking raid filled with Nerubians, and the introduction of new instance delves working similar to dungeons, overall fighting members of the Void, some giant insects, giant bugs named Nerubians, as well as some familiar looking kobolds along the way. In the War Within, we'll also see a lot of mechanical changes for how your day-to-day character experience goes, most notably with the introductions of Warbands, which finally sees your heroes and forgotten alts sitting around the campfire together, ready to dispense some justice, meaning that when you log into the game, you'll see a selection of your characters and choose who you're heading out with in this warband. And once in your warband, you no longer need to choose to swap between realms like you previously did, and things are finally shared across this warband on your characters, such as reputations. So when one character farms a reputation to Exalted, the other characters in your warband don't need to then re-farm this reputation. You'll also have access to a warband bank to share any non-soul-bound items between your characters, acting much like how a guild bank does, but just with your characters alone. We'll also be seeing some helpful changes for those who like to farm transmog, as now any character can collect an item appearance regardless of whether they can equip it or not. However, the existing rules for transmog still stand, so for example, plate armor can only be transmogrified to a plate armor wearer. Further to this, guilds are now also to invite characters across different realms, introducing a cross-realm guild bank also, and generally speaking, these are introductions to the game which will be seen as a bigger change for returning players mostly, as these are quality of life additions into the game which generally speaking are pretty typical in other MMOs or RPGs in the current day. So for new players, a lot of these features should feel pretty familiar, and for returning players, hopefully these come as a sigh of relief. But there we have it, just a few reasons why I think the War Within could be worth checking out for returning or new players alike. Jumping into an epic 3-part expansion storyline, bringing back some of Warcraft's most iconic characters in a classic tale of light versus dark. That, for a change, doesn't feel like you need to know 20 years of lore to be invested in it, as realistically the next 3 expansions are going to keep everyone guessing, introducing this epic storyline alongside positive gameplay and system changes that are core to World of Warcraft, meaning overall I'm really excited to see what the War Within will bring us in this new era of WoW. So do let me know what you think. Are you excited for the War Within? Are you still on the fence about trying it out, or are you on a strict diet of classic WoW still? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. But as always, take care out there, and I'll see you on the next one. As always, if you're new here, feel free to like and subscribe. And on that note, I think I'll say ta-ra for now, and I'll see you later.